Hello, hello, my beauties and bees. It's good to see everybody out there. And yeah, I can pull some stuff together. It's all like on in a whole bunch of papers and stuff on it, and I will show it to you. Cats, cats, cats. Oh goodness. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining me today in Cryptic Corner. Good to see you all, and welcome to the show. Tonight we are exploring the depths of the sea. Tonight we are diving into the world of the Kraken. So I haven't talked about this organism before. I did have a few deep sea monsters that have come up. We talked about the bloop. Yeah, welcome to Cryptic Corner, you sea love. I don't know if I've seen you in here before. This is the show where we explore the realm of the unknown, these mysterious claims about monsters and ghosts and aliens and all these alleged ancient civilizations and supernatural phenomena, and we kind of look at it under a skeptical lens and see what we can make of it. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody. And so exploring the depths of the sea, we have looked at the bones of Leviathan, which to me looked like bones of a basking shark in the Mediterranean. We looked at a mysterious drifting creature in the depths, which turned out to be, was it Astaria? A type of deep sea animal that looks kind of like a floating trash bag from certain angles. We have been all over the oceans of the world, but yet we have never encountered one of its most deadly and famous cryptids. Sightings of the Kraken in the tail of the Kraken. I mean, it goes back quite a ways. There's always these ancient stories and depictions like the one you see here in my title card, where the beast is crushing a ship, or climbing aboard a ship, or dragging a ship into the murky depths. But where does this come from, and do these things exist? Right? That's the question that's on my mind. Or maybe not even do they exist. Maybe did they exist? How about that? Did they exist at some point in time? But we're going to explore this and so much more. And we're going to have to try to figure out exactly what the Kraken is. So there's a few, it almost comes down to just a couple of culprits. But there are a few different organisms that we're going to look at today. To see woke of the Kraken. What? So there's a few candidates for, there's gonna the Black Pearl. Yes, I'm seeing lots of good commentary and Kraken jokes. Release the Kraken, indeed. Yep. So the first candidate, this is actually what inspired this, because this came up in my feed in like a photography group, right? Oh, look at this giant Pacific octopus. It's so huge. It's every bit of 30 feet long. Look at this massive cephalopod. Surely this thing weighs hundreds of pounds. But we scrolled into the comment section, and there was that's where I found this. So let's take note. Clearly the same picture, right? So just a tiny bit of sleuthing actually was able to find this. So, all together. So they made this out of this, and so, this is the one that was on the feed. And then I found this stuff, and I'm like, I bet I can make that, because this was one that was selling for people. So I tried my hand at it. This is what I came up with. Mine's a little darker, I think. But I don't know. What do you think? Theirs has like added light and stuff to give it definition. Mine really didn't. I didn't go that deep into it. And, I mean, they put the shadow on the seafloor and everything. I did not do that. But I thought mine turned out all right. This one was the one I did. But giant Pacific octopus do get big. They get like super big. Let me show you. Let me show you how big these suckers get, because they're absolutely massive. Yeah, let's see here. I got a video ready. No worries. Just hang in there. So these guys get, I mean, freaking huge. This one's not, this is just an average. It's just your normal size giant Pacific octopus. And you will notice that I've started leaving these muted as much as possible. I got my show shut down twice last week while reviewing channels. That's what I do. I make response videos on this show, so it's kind of important that I be able to do that. It's really becoming a problem that YouTube is trying to take that option away. But yeah, this sucker is every bit of probably 6 to 7 foot long. Very powerful animal. Those suction cups are nothing to mess with. While you're pulling these ones off, those ones are getting attached to it, and it's trying to take this gentleman's camera away. That's its goal. Look at it doing its jet and everything. It's like, I'm taking this camera. Look how strong it is when it's swimming, too. It's almost yanking him off. It just yanked him off the seafloor. Yeah, that is amazing. Anyway, that's the giant Pacific octopus. Now, the radial dimensions of a giant Pacific octopus, or any of the large octopi, really. Oh, good morning, Mystique. Who else do we got? I thought I saw somebody. Yeah, Savage Minnow, exactly. Fair use. Yeah, but this is the quintessential one, right? But this is the one that more people are likely to encounter are these large octopi, because they live near the shores, whereas other cephalopods live usually in deeper waters. Now, there are octopus that do live in deeper waters, a whole group of octopus that look really weird and alien, not like what you think of when you think of an octopus, like the Dumbo octopus, for instance. And we may cover those when we get down into the abyss at some point, which we will. We're gonna have to do Monsters of the Abyss, because we're always finding crazy creatures down there. I just want to just go through them. But yeah, so I mean, in depictions from like Victorian era and stuff, there's a lot of octopus-like features on the Kraken as they recount these stories. They're always wrapping their tentacles around sails and pulling ships over and capsizing them. And it's an octopus, right? It's always depicted as this big octopus. As far as I'm aware, no species of octopus has yet been discovered that could even capsize a rowboat. As strong as a giant Pacific octopus might be, they're not some huge monster, right? This was a thing. Divers used to seek these guys out and wrestle with them. They're not some monster of the deep. One human can generally a healthy human can generally overpower one. Now they're strong enough, and it's just like it'd be like handling a snake this size. They're strong enough to kill you. They can kill you. They certainly. I wouldn't be surprised to find historical accounts of octopus killing people, but unfortunately, at this point, there's not even any of those on the record that I can see. There's octopus attacking people, biting people. Octopus are poisonous, or not poisonous, venomous. Well, venom is a type of poison. That's another hill I'm going to die on. But octopus are venomous. So when you're tangling with an octopus, that's the thing you should be worried about. Not that it's huge and can just crush you, but that that it will bite you and envenomate you. I love calamari too, by the way. First time I tried it was on a pier in Florida. Fried calamari. It was delicious. I was also starving though, so that's probably part of the problem. So I think we can rule out a giant Pacific or any other octopus for that matter. Mostly because giant Pacific octopus live in the Pacific, and most of the ancient accounts of krakens are in the North Sea and the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. So that's where the kraken legends come from. And giant Pacific octopus, as their name states, is from the Pacific. There are a few species of giant Atlantic octopus that are quite large, but none of them larger than the largest. And if even the largest can't out wrestle a human, I don't know how they're going to be sinking these giant ships in the golden age of sailing, with these big armada ships. All right, so that is, of course, unless we talk about some giant octopuses that we don't know about yet. But you know what? Globsters are a whole thing. So not today, but someday. That is not a stone that can be left unturned. It's not something that we can just dismiss. What's going on out here? Someone said thank you to me. I don't know what I said. Oh yeah, thank you for saying I'm looking good, Mystique Tina Jones. Yay. So Savage Minnow says, I believe that there is very likely to be a giant cephalopod species down in the deep, but not so much thinking it's an octopus though. Yeah, me either. There is another contender, and we can be, let's look at this and see. I want to show you guys how aggressive this other contender can be. Now, this isn't the same species, right? It's in the same order, but it's not the same species. Here. All right. This is jumbo squid, Humboldt squid, or Rojo Diablo, the red devil squid. Another Pacific beastie, but let's check them out. These are the largest of what they call the flying squid. Keep in mind, he's wearing chainmail, right? And that squid's just attacking him. And watch the squid's color as it does. Look at the, see along the suction cups, you see the little things look like maybe like fringe on there, or like on the outside of the suction cup. That's not fringe, that's like hooks. Those look like cat claws. Just on this species, they'd be about the size of cat claws too, I suppose. And they line the inside of each of these arms. So these are arms right here. They're a little different than the tentacles. The tentacles are the two long ones that it has, and they have like a flat, like a feeding apparatus, it's almost like a tongue on the end of them that have these hooks as well that they can sweep and grapple something to pull them towards that gnarly beak they have in there. And it's completely concealed, but it's as big as like the giant squid, which is what we're going to talk about here in a second. Its beak is as big as a parrot's beak, is like a macaw's beak. But yeah, let's let this guy show us more about this radical creature. Ouch. I bet that hurts. But yeah, you look at the size of this too. These are not small animals. Humboldt squid. And they're large predatory creatures. there is a story of this photographer or this filmmaker going down and filming this. There's film like it. This one was just better quality because this has been done since then. First time that anybody went and kind of dove with these Humboldt squid in the Sea of Cortez, which is the sea between the Baja of Mexico and Mexico, or the Baja California in Mexico. This big long sea full of it's kind of a unique biome, right? Because of the how sharp it drops off. There's really not like any reefs or anything on the side, but it's this contained dark chasm. Lots of cool deep sea animals make this place their home. The Humboldt squid are prevalent in there. In the legend is that if you fall off a boat, they will swarm you and drag you down. And they do send each other signals. They see the color pulsing that this squid is doing. There's different messages here. We haven't like learned the language, right? We haven't figured out squid speak. But we know that they are saying things to each other when they do these flashes, because they will respond. When this first gentleman that I was talking about went diving with them, one latched onto, or came up and latched onto him and started flashing some signals that led the other ones to also swarm him and come and try to get a taste. And eventually they started sending different signals to say, this thing's not edible, let's go. And they all left at the same time. It was really interesting. But again, this video gives us a better view of what a Humboldt squid looks like. The problem with Humboldt squid, now Humboldt squid are, again, flying squids, so they actually can jump out of the water. It's part of their their ecological niche. Now, most of the flying squid are a lot smaller than this, and some of them can fly quite a bit. That's why they're called flying squid. They got that big broad mantle that when they get airborne, they just flap that away, and it allows them to glide for some distance, up to 30 meters, which is a great way to evade predators. But the Humboldt squid does not, launch itself anywhere near that distance. But it is the largest of flying squid and maintains the broad mantle to help it glide. It is a deep sea animal, comes up to towards the surface to feed, fills a niche very similar to like a black-tip shark, kind of feeding frenzies in the open sea whenever there's shipwrecks and stuff like that. There's legends of Humboldt squid being on scene to devour the hapless sailors. But as far as I know, no Humboldt squids, not even a whole swarm of them, could ever take down a boat. And I think that if it was a horde of, Humboldt squid can get huge. I think 7 foot is the record, but that's a big squid. It's bigger than a person. That they would have been documented as that. Now, some of the squid that are reported as we move forward through some of these reports, you're going to notice that they are smaller. And giant squid even are not maybe as big as you picture in your mind. They only weigh, what is it? Giant squid. The heaviest, so 39 to 43 feet long, but they're very, very skinny. The colossal squid's actually a lot wider, but where's the weight at? Morphology. Here we go. Sorry, I'm so well prepared. Actually, I just got so much on this topic. I'm afraid it's going to run too long. About 606 pounds. So not even over 1,000 pounds. These are not, they're megafauna, but they're not, like on whale scale. Now, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to squid attacks, at least in modern times, is this little boat right here. And this is the French ship Villa de Paris. Which was a World War, or not World War, no, way before that, American War of Independence, American Revolution. It was a ship that was famous for being in a battle in the American Revolution. And now there are some accounts of its demise. So it was part of a fleet. It was a flagship for a fleet 9 ships total, but it was lost in 1782. Now, some reports claim that it was attacked by a giant cephalopod that dragged it under, and this is kind of the ship that people think about when they think of the traditional classic old rigger ship with all the sails and weapons of war being taken down by this monster of the deep, like you see in all the depictions, even the ones that were up above that were based on the octopus. Let me go back to them real quick. Yeah, like this one here with the octopus, that's all based on this too. So this is probably, this is probably the quintessential ship that people think of. But there's mixed messages because there was a hurricane in the Atlantic at the time that this fleet was moving through too, and they were in troubled waters when it went down. So visibility was probably not what you would expect from the other ships, and I'm sure they were expected to keep some distance away in this storm condition with the erratic waters shifting around. I don't think that I don't know. I've never sailed, so I'm not going to pretend like I have any kind of knowledge about it. But I imagine that there's probably rules about moving through a storm and trying to keep your distance from other ships so the seas don't force you into a collision. So how close they were and how much the other sailors could have seen of this ship when it went down, it's hard to say. But the legend lives on, and it's given us this imagery. The modern image of the Kraken is a squid as opposed to its traditional image as an octopus. But a squid is definitely a better culprit for these Kraken of old than the octopus is, because they do actually get pretty dang massive. Now the giant squid, people will tell you the colossal squid is bigger than the giant squid, and that's true to a point. The giant squid is probably about, at least 2/3 longer than the colossal squid though. So the giant squid still has more length and bulk. So overall, it may look like a larger animal, depending on how you want to look at it. But there are other squid that have tentacles that are super long too, like the big fin squid, that don't behave in any way, shape, or form like a Kraken. So you can't really put them on the those. That's the one that they discovered like by the oil rig. Man, I wish I'd pulled up that video now. That was just like kind of hanging out in the water column straight up, and people were freaked out by it, right? But that's definitely not a good suspect for the Kraken. I think that the giant squid is probably the best suspect that we have of known animals, that it could be what it was based on. Because giant squid are long tentacled, which is something that'd be expected. Also, they live in the waters that the colossal squid don't. So colossal squid live down like around Antarctica, just in this big circle, just around the Arctic Circle. They like it really cold, really deep, and we didn't even discover them until like 1927 because we weren't in those waters. So colossal squid, its tentacles really aren't long enough to account for some of the reach that the Kraken allegedly had, to wrap around like mast and stuff. I don't think a colossal squid could reach the deck of a boat from the water. Not a boat like this American Revolution warship anyway. But the squids depicted in these images are more reasonable sized and more realistically depicted as a giant squid would be. Now, these are a couple actually famous sightings here that are depicted. So let me get to that section here. Okay, so the one on the left is also, I believe, based on the Villa de Paris. But the one on the right is actually could be the Conception Bay attack. I think the Conception Bay attack in 1873, a fishing boat in Conception Bay, Newfoundland, was attacked by a giant squid. Numerous letters about the incident stated a severed tentacle was recovered In 1874, a report appeared in an Indian newspaper stating that on the 10th of May of the current year, a ship called the Strathoan was leaving Colombo for Madras through the Bay of Bengal. In the distance, a small boat appeared to which a huge crowd was whipping movement and then climbed onto it. It was a giant squid or giant octopus. The small ship soon capsized and then sank. The crew on the small boat got into the water, but they were picked up by the crew of the Strathoan. The captain, James Floyd, reported that the small ship was called the Pearl, weighing 140 tons, 150 short tons. They claimed they themselves shot the squid floating in silence, which made him furious and climbed onto the ship. 2 sailors died in the squid's arms and a third disappeared, perhaps drowned. 5 people escaped the Pearl. The squid's body was said to be at least as thick as the small ship, its arms as thick as wood, which is a weird statement. As thick as wood. I don't know what that would even mean. As thick as wood sounds like an insult, though. I'm guessing it's probably like a tree, but trees come in all different shapes and sizes, right? And then I need to talk about the Britannia. So here's a couple more images of those 2 sightings, which are kind of famous, where the squid tried to drag down a little fishing vessel or fishing boat. The next thing we have to discuss here is going to be the SS Britannia. Now, the SS Britannia was a British ship that was sunk by German forces in World War II, 1941. Okay, it was more about what happened after it that's going to come into play, because there were these gentlemen that were stranded on rafts and flotation devices after the ship went down, floating in the sea for days, right? And really should reread it, even though it's much drier than Burns. Oh, y'all talking about yeah, absolutely. Was it 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea? I couldn't remember. Because I kept wanting to think that it was because I get it mixed up with some of his other works, you know. Anyway, in my mind. Anyway, so they were these people were rescued by a Spanish steamer, right? When they it was days later. They had been adrift for how long was it now? There was 12 men on this particular raft, 3 that survived. So 3 survivors in the end. And the story mostly is about this guy named R.E.G. Cox and what he experienced. So they were attacked by a German ship. They gave them 5 minutes to take the boat, but these were mostly, they were being fired at while they were supposed to be evacuating. Regardless, they did get on a raft, all 12 of these guys. There wasn't enough room on the raft for everybody to be able to sit together. So people had to hang over the side of the boat, right? They had to hang off the raft. And while they were hanging off the raft, this gentleman, Mr. R.E.G. Cox, was stung by a Portuguese man-of-war, which is a very, very venomous Nindarian, which is a, I guess, layman term you'd call it a jellyfish, but I take umbrage with that. Regardless, they look like a floating blob with tons of tentacles under the water. So he saw the glob first, right? And all the tentacles in the water you don't see. That's how people get stung. They don't see them. They're underwater and they're thin, like threads. they have little stinking hooks on them, right? So this Portuguese man of war started drifting towards them. He was splashing the water, trying to swat it away. Hit the water and felt the sting of the tentacles as he hit the water close to it. He ended up rubbing all over his face, his mouth. So he was having a bad time. They were, again, normal things that you suffer from when you lost at sea, which we can expect is like dehydration and exposure. The sun's baking you from above. The salt's drying your skin. You're dehydrated. There's no cover, no shelter. And that's how you are lost at sea. So couple that with jellyfish stings, with Portuguese man of war stings, and you're having just a terrible time, right? It gets worse though. So the people started going crazy, as you do. And I think R.E.G. Cox may have been one of them, but one of the guys went berserk and ended up getting thrown overboard and was immediately bitten in half by a shark. So they left him and to the beast of the sea, but it was also claimed that a manta ray ate one of the sailors too. So I'm taking this at this point. Once you start having manta rays, because manta rays are filter feeders, right? Manta rays are big. Let me pull this up to There we go. Yeah, manta. So here's some images from this manta ray attacking the boat here, attacking the raft. No, they don't attack people. They don't have the necessary jaws and mouth parts to even eat anything bigger than maybe like a grape. They even spit out fish that we could swallow because their throat's so narrow. So no, manta ray did not attack and kill people. But at this point, I don't know what's going on. If they were, they were drinking seawater and all kinds of stuff. This is a classic shipwreck conditions, right? Where people are adrift at sea, and this is the type of story that comes back. But manta ray are just big flappy gentle giants. They're not. They may be scary. I can understand a bunch of sailors that are hallucinating being terrified of a manta ray. It's a big flappy thing coming towards me, but it's not dangerous. The sharks probably were, and if the squid was there, it probably was too, because that's what he said he saw, a squid, while he laid there, suffering from his jellyfish stings, screaming in pain. Writhing in pain. He said he saw the person who at that time was hanging in the water get pulled down into the abyss by squidly tentacles coming down and yanking him into the darkness of the sea. That's his report, but as we know, the reports are sketchy at best on this. There were definitely there's 3 survivors. He's the only one that saw the squid. I think he's the only one that saw the manta ray too. But the other people did corroborate the sharks. So I think that, there may have been sharks involved. I don't know if I believe the squid. The next thing I want to talk about was 1978. This comes from the cryptid profile. So let's look at this one. This will probably tie this up nice and with a nice neat bow, but there's a couple of things I just might want to catch up on. In 1978, the USS Stein, a United States Navy Knox-class destroyer escort, which was named after Medal of Honor recipient Tony Stein, was running special operations in the Pacific Ocean somewhere between Acapulco and Ecuador when it encountered something extremely large and entirely unseen in the water. Completely out of nowhere, the ship began to experience severe technical issues and suffer from the eventual failure of its sonar system, a technique that uses sound propagation to navigate and detect objects under the surface of the water. The problem, which required the ship to immediately return to the port in California. Upon arrival, the ship was dry docked at Long Beach Naval Shipyard. A maintenance team went to work to repair the damage of the system. As the team approached the sonar dome, they noticed extremely visible damage to the rubber coating that wrapped around the dome itself. Over 8% of the surface was covered with deep cuts, gashes, and scrapes. Within the deepest of these cuts, the repair team discovered large curved hooks that were frighteningly similar to the kind of hooks found within the suction cups of large squid. The only problem, though, was that these hooks were almost 5 times larger than any known squid. So after a few days of maintenance on the dome, the sonar was repaired and the ship was sent back out to continue its mission. The collected hooks were then sent out for analysis and study. Unsurprisingly, the results of the study confirmed that the hooks were indeed from a large unknown type of gigantic squid. Official measurements of the hooks, as well as the gashes, believe it to have been created by the suction cups, revealed that the size of the creature that had come from had to be upwards of 150 feet. That's 45.72 meters long. This is starting to startling. Okay, there's my dyslexia or whatever kicking in. This is startling to imagine because the largest squid known to man, the colossal squid, which, yeah, it's the one that we talked about that was a big beefy boy, only grows to upwards of 46 feet. The second largest squid known to man, the giant squid, has been estimated to reach a maximum size of 43 feet for females and 33 feet for males. I'm not sure. I think the giant squid is substantially longer than the colossal squid. I'm not sure about these measurements being cited here. But this is Pine Barren Institute, a cryptozoology site. So I will take anything they present with a little grain of salt, if you don't mind. Just a little bit, a pinch. Pinch of salt for Pine Barren Institute. No offense. So what attacked the USS Stein in 1978? Could it truly have been a new species of giant squid not yet known to science? Throughout the years, the proposed number of different giant squid species has been greatly debated within the scientific community, with some believing multiple species exist, the others believing relatively few species exist. But it appears that the science may be close to settling this debate. Through genetic testing of washed up corpses of giant squids found along beaches, the evidence is starting to suggest that only one species of giant squid actually exists. Until this giant monster squid is once again encountered, it shall remain nameless and hidden within the black depths of the vast ocean. And when it finally does decide to make itself known, the science, we may think the name monumental squid would fit nicely. If we found a squid that's bigger than a giant squid or a colossal squid, I don't know, maybe gargantuous squid, Goliath squid. Goliath squid would be good. Kraken squid. I like that name. So here's the thing. We talked about the Humboldt squid for a reason, and not because it could have possibly been one of the culprits here necessarily, but more so because the Humboldt squid is aggressive. Now, it lives a completely different lifestyle than the giant squid and the colossal squid, which are they live even deeper down than the Humboldt squid. They are slow moving. They spend most of their time just literally hanging out in the water column, not moving around a lot. I mean, Humboldt squids do that as well, but they're a little more active when it comes to hunting, whereas these giant squids are not quite as active. Now, when a giant squid gets sick, it floats in the water column, right? Because they have ammonia in their body for buoyancy. And the ammonia makes it so when they're not swimming, they start to slowly drift upwards. So the idea that the squid is floating up in the water column, right? When we find them, and squids are inquisitive animals, they grab anything that comes close to them. It's not a surprise to or it wouldn't be normal to think a 6 squid floating on the surface might grab a hold of a boat, right? Or might grab a hold of a ship even. Just because it can. Because it's floating there, it's sick, maybe dying. Either way, it is holding on to the ship and maybe even interacting with the people on board. It may or may not be predatory. I don't think it's predatory. I think it's just hanging on to it and it scares people. There was actually, in more recent days, was it a sailboat, right? Yeah, it was like on a racing boat was attacked by a squid that, and all it did was it didn't have any way to stop it. All it did was it stuck its tentacles in the rudders and made it so they couldn't move, and just kind of hung on to them for a while, feeling its way around until it got bored and finally left. Anyway, so that was the Kraken. What I think the Kraken is just that giant squids that are sick or dying, floating on the surface, grabbing onto a boat that drifts by. I do want to show an example of the behavior of these animals in the wild. This is a diver that actually got to swim with a giant squid. We're going to close out on this. So here we go. All right, now thank you so much for joining us in Cryptic Corner today as we looked at the giant Kraken and we tried to find out what species it might be. We looked into the Pacific octopus. We've looked into some squids. Giant octopus and squids seem to be the leading culprit. So if you have a different opinion, if you think there's a different species that might be responsible, please leave it in the comment below. And remember to be kind and take care. And we will see you next time. All right, so for everybody else sticking around for some Creation Watch, that'll be with you in just a moment. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and transition into this, but I actually want you all to know what it was like growing up with me as a parent. This was played on blast in my household in the early 2000s because I just loved it.
Now gather round, children. I'll tell you a tale about valiant squid and some bloodthirsty whales. A battle that rages deep in the blue sea, far from the surface, from you and from me. Squid and whales in the battle of the century. Squid and whales were determined to conquer the sea. Suction cups and giant beaks versus dorsal fins, blubber and meat. Some giant squid with giant eyes versus sperm whales of massive sizing. Suckers, hooks and tentacles against the earth's largest mammals. The mighty titans of the sea in battle for their destiny. And the cephalopods sing. Squid and whales, 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 squid and whales.